Welcome to the Mental Advantage Podcast. Whether you're an athlete trying to perform at your best when it counts the most, a coach or business leader trying to get more out of your team, or someone looking for more personal growth, this is the place for you. This podcast is your map to guide you to the right mindset, systems, and strategies you need to become the best version of yourself. And now, here's John Cullen and Brandon Allen.
All right, welcome to the show. Really excited for our guest tonight, Brandon Vad Lee, who you know really well because when he first came out of high school in North Carolina, he ends up going to Georgia Tech, and that would have been right there in your backyard where you get a chance to see him kind of grow in his career, before he ultimately transfers up to my backyard. At the time was James Madison University.
Yeah, he was a highly touted kid coming out of Durham, North Carolina. And I remember, just being local here, I remember the buzz around him coming in, and, he was going to be a transformative quarterback for Paul Johnson, I think at the time, and Georgia Tech. And, he was a big deal and a great talent. But boy, are the listeners going to find out a better man off the field than he was on.
Which is incredible to say, right? I mean, it's one of those things that, we hear that, said about a lot of people, but you talk about what a great talent he was on the field, and then to be able to have the kind of purpose he's lived with since then. So we're, as we mentioned, Vad Lee, he's an author, athlete, life coach, mentor. He's been a motivational speaker, still is. But the author of a couple of books. The main one we kind of really dive into is Purpose Over Position. And then he also has a book that he wrote with his wife. That's My Friend, which he shares that story. And I can't wait for the listeners to hear that because it's got such an important message, I think, for everybody to hear. And it's one of those things where, as Vad gets into, he had some challenges along the way as his college career goes, and then ultimately into chasing that dream of professional sports. But each step along the way, even if it was a challenge, he still kept the right attitude, kept, pushing forward, and never let any of these things define him, including all the way back to high school when people were trying to define him and he wouldn't let them define him.
That's right. And, it's funny because, or not funny, but he's always had a purpose and he shares it with us tonight.
Yep. So get your pen and paper ready. Here's Vad Lee. All right, Brandon. Well, as the introduction said there, we've got a guest for you all tonight. We have Vad Lee, who it's funny. You all have probably even heard me reference Vad a couple of times on this show over the course of the time we've been on doing this podcast, because my son, Mac, of course, played football at JMU, James Madison University in Virginia. And he was like an incoming freshman when Vad was a senior and kind of there one of his last years. But when we talk about good teammates, when we talk about culture, when we talk about leadership, all of the things that you all as listeners hear a lot on this show, Brandon, Vad's somebody who encompasses all of those things. And we'll get into that a little bit. So Vad, thanks for joining us on the show tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. It's always an honor to be able to talk character, leadership, ball, and life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, man, let's go back to kind of go to the beginning of this, at least high school. You were one of those athletes that everybody had their eyes on. It's interesting. I've heard and done some research that, I think in the beginning, it was mostly as a receiver, right? Your sophomore year, everyone's like, hey, we'd love to have this guy come on as a receiver. But you have you go to Hillside High School in Durham. You all won the 4A North Carolina state championship in 2010, going 16-0. And I'm not even going to get into some of your crazy stats that year. But first of all, what do you remember about that high school experience, and then maybe just kind of start getting into a little bit of your college choices.
Yeah, in high school, man, that was some of the best times of playing ball. You get to do it with guys that you grew up with playing Pop Warner ball. Maybe some guys went to different middle schools but reconnected in high school, or vice versa. You went to were together in middle school but then went to a different high school. And, it was definitely a lot of fun. Early on, I started off, I was the quarterback. I came in as the quarterback. However, we had a senior in front of me that was really talented. He's a big brother to me. His name is Corey Gaddis. He ended up playing at Duke University. And so while he was playing, coaches thought it was smart to get me some exposure out there on the field. So they put me out at receiver. Now, we did not know that I was going to have over 1,000 yards receiving my sophomore year. But I guess with me running a 4.4 and just being able to run by people, it worked out, right? And I could tell you I wasn't like a fancy receiver at all. I was just a guy that would run right past you, and I had a little size to me as well. But, yeah, that was extremely fun. And I went to an all-black high school. Well, not all-black, but predominantly black high school. And the stigma for our high school is that we always had some really talented athletes, but we weren't smart enough. We weren't, we weren't disciplined enough. We weren't going to get over the edge. And I took that as a leader of my senior year. I took that with pride, and I took that as a challenge, and I used it as fuel to get us over the edge. And Hillside, we have had many talented athletes come through those doors, but not a lot of championships. And my senior year, I was just, we were going to make it happen. And our motto was all in, 2010, 16-0 state champs. And we were calling that out back in April, before the year even started, because we had our vision set. My best friend and I, he was the captain for the defense and I was the captain for the offense. And we're still best friends to this day. He ended up going to play at the Naval Academy, and he's in Guam right now, him and his family. But we still have notes that we talk about that.
No way.
We used to write notes. I did poetry before the games. I did diss poems about the other team, which is always fun. So, yeah, I got a lot of high school stories. I think our high school really could be a movie one day just because of that scenario of, predominantly black school, not being able to get over the hump, but finally, being able to get there. And it was a lot of fun.
It fuels the fire, right? Like when you're in that situation where there's a stigma there, when that the deck is stacked against you, so to speak, at least as it relates to everybody else's perspective of your school. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm just going to go prove you wrong.
Yeah. And you know what? I wouldn't even say that we even played to prove people wrong. We knew that we had the talent.
Yeah.
We knew that we had everything that we needed to have. All it was just on us, My mom went to Hillside. My grandma went to Hillside. So there's rich history at Hillside High School when you go to Durham, North Carolina.
So Vad, looking back on it and doing what you're doing today and the leadership and that you're providing, how do you leverage that, right? As a leader, because to your point, I don't need necessarily that chip on my shoulder. I just need to be able to use this as a way to lead my guys. So how at a young age, how do you cultivate that within yourself?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's many men pushing me and challenging me to be great. I had an athletic director. His name was Bob Hill, and he would be so hard on me when I first got to the high school. And he did it on purpose. Now I get to talk to him more now about, why he was doing some of the things that he was doing. He was pulling me to his office every 5 minutes. I did not want to see him in the hallway because that meant that he had a speech for me, or he was going to try to get on me about something. And really, he saw greatness inside of me, and he saw leadership inside of me, and he saw character inside of me, and he was trying to perfect my character. My high school coach, Coach Antonio King, He played quarterback at Hillside High School back in the day. So it was a great deal for him to be the head coach at Hillside for the first time. And that was a lot of pride there as well for him and myself. And I just had a lot of great people that I was surrounded with. And I kind of mentioned those disc poems that I was doing. I had one of my teammates, Jamal Williams, one of my good friends. I remember him encouraging me to read the poems in front of the team. I just did it during class, like, just something to do for fun and, rhyming words, putting words together and things like that. I just was doing it for fun, but he thought it was really good. And he's like, man, this is what he said. He said, if you don't read it, I'm going to read it. And of course, I didn't want him taking credit.
Right. That's right.
It built me up to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I got to give a big shout out to Jamal Williams because, my life, I've been speaking. I actually just left Temple University and I spoke to their football team yesterday. And that has kind of set the tone for me as a leader, as a character, and a public speaker as well. So I gotta give a lot of kudos to a lot of different people that have encouraged me along the way.
I heard you on a podcast, Vad, talk about, what the host was asking you. He said, what was really interesting about your story is that from an early age, you had wanted to be a preacher. And
Yes.
you said, you know what, I think – yes, there was the faith portion of that, but you said, I also think it was just the idea of just being in front of people and talking. That was something that excited you. So I'm thinking back to you in that locker room doing those disc poems, and it's probably not something that even pushed you outside of your comfort zone that much. You liked that kind of spotlight, if you will.
Yeah, well, at the time I did not, because my speech I didn't feel like my speech was, I spoke with a lot of slang and still sometimes speak with slang. So, I was really scared. And plus you're reading poetry in front of a bunch of guys, right?
Right.
Are they going to really accept that? But I tailored it to our kind of culture, our language, and the guys loved it. They were looking for it, next week, bring something else next week. So it was really fun.
That's awesome. So after high school, I know you had a bunch of different choices and options as far as football goes. What did you lean on to make your decision to go to Georgia Tech?
One, I will say that Georgia Tech did a great job of recruiting me. They also had a team chaplain there. He's no longer there. He's at South Carolina now. His name is Derek Moore.
Very well.
Yeah. Demo is what we say. And Demo is a mentor to me. Actually, I was just talking to him on the phone yesterday for some advice, some career advice. I knew that when I met Demo, I was going to Georgia Tech. I talked to Demo. My recruiting situation was kind of unique because I was talking to the character coach more than I was talking to the coaches, because I felt as though he had something that I needed. And I couldn't explain it then, but I can look back now and understand the whole story and what was happening. So, I credit him a lot. And then I also credit Georgia Tech for recruiting me as well. I just wanted somebody to tell me that I was their quarterback. And they stamped that. You are my quarterback. And Georgia Tech made it very clear that I was their quarterback. As we talked about, I played receiver early on. So, of course, as a sophomore, if you have 1,000 yards receiving and you got nice size and nice speed, everybody's thinking you might be the number one receiver about time you become a senior, right? Mm-hmm. And, I had coaches, come to me and look me in the face and say, son, you're not a quarterback. I'm offering you to be a wide receiver at my school. And I was really confused by that, honestly, because I never practiced at receiver. I always my individual time was always at quarterback. I literally just got shoved out there and they said, hey, run this play. And it worked, but mentally, I was never a receiver. I was the backup quarterback. Mentally, I'm just out there. So, I think that kind of confused some things a little bit when it came to me, especially when coaches heard me say, no, I'm a quarterback, coach. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a quarterback. And Georgia Tech, they say, hey, you're our guy. So that meant a lot to me for sure.
So, Vad, how do you at a young age? So this story is really interesting to me because at a young age to be able to stand up to, and I say stand up, I mean, going through a recruiting process for our listeners, I mean, that's a very, very stressful time for a young man. right?
Yeah.
I mean, one, because you can almost fall in love every weekend, right?
Sure.
Every visit, you're like, oh, wow. And they tell you all the right things.
Absolutely.
And for you to get that attachment or connection with Demo, I think one, that speaks volumes, but also to be an advocate for yourself at a young age and have that belief that goes, hey, I'm not a receiver. I'm a quarterback and I'm going to go do this. So when I have Power 5 conferences or coaches asking me or telling me I've got a ride if I'll play receiver,
mm-hmm.
that takes a lot to bet on yourself that way. That's very admirable at that age to do that. Where did that come from?
Well, I've only had one vision, and that's to be the quarterback. So I wasn't. I don't think I was going to allow an outsider, somebody who I don't even know, influence me that I'm not the quarterback. And I'll be honest with you. And it's not a race thing, but I'll be honest with you. Being an African American quarterback, I've had to deal with a lot of politics and a lot of things that maybe everybody don't deal with. And I learned that early on. I had to learn that early on, and I even had to learn what schools wouldn't play my style of quarterbacking. This school, they don't have a track record of playing this. I probably shouldn't look at that. So you have to learn that stuff early on. It's a lot of. And man, it's a lot of stuff that's not talked about, kind of, under the rug type of stuff. But it's your job. You are your CEO. The athlete is his own CEO. You're a businessman. You have to be able to be willing to make those courageous decisions. And for me, I will say though, looking back, I did have some insecurity. I realized that I had some insecurity because of these coaches telling me that you're not this, you're not that, you're not going to be this, you're going to be a receiver. I think that built up it built up an edge, right? It's like, man, like, let's go do it. Of course, I go and win the North Carolina Player of the Year. We go 16-0, all of those good things, right? So I'm like, okay, I proved myself, right? But two, as a more mature man, I will say that I look back at it and I do see the insecurity as well, because I chose to go to Georgia Tech, knowing that they ran a triple option, and I didn't really understand what that was. I just knew that they said that they wanted to throw the ball a little bit more, and that they haven't had a guy to be able to throw the ball like that. So I'm thinking, man, I can go and influence and change this offense. But on the other hand, I think I was a little nervous when I was challenged to go to more passing offenses. I think I was a little nervous because everybody was saying what I couldn't do, and I'm a runner, and I only can do this, right? I remember James Franklin came in, and he just took the job at Vanderbilt. He offered me at Maryland, and Coach Franklin, he's an aggressive guy. He's an aggressive recruiter. He knows what he wants, and he's going to go after it. And I remember him coming in. This is funny because I never shared this before, so hey, kudos to you guys for getting this out of me. But Coach Franklin came to me and he said, "Vad, you said you wanted to be a quarterback. I'm giving you the opportunity to be a quarterback." And he just kept putting emphasis. He kept putting emphasis on their offense and what they were going to do. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And like he's just like, "You said you wanted to be a quarterback." And I remember feeling. I remember instead of like taking heed to his advice, I'm a very loyal guy. I had already committed to Georgia Tech at that time, so it was nothing anybody could really say to me that was going to change my decision at that point, because I felt like they were loyal to me, saying that, hey, you're going to be our guy. So I felt like I needed to be loyal to them. Now, if any recruits or any high school guys are listening and recruiting, I will say that you have to make the best decision for you. You can't make the best decision for the fan base. You can't make the best decision for an insecurity. You can't make the best decision for I was involved in recruiting other teammates to come along with me. I'm a very vocal and I love on people. So, of course, if I'm going somewhere, I want everybody to go and I want you to go. And so I'm talking to guys on Facebook and I think Twitter might have been around. Yeah, it was starting to be around that time. And I started recruiting a lot of guys. And I'm like, man, I can't back out of this thing because these guys are with me. But I ended up transferring. So it's kind of the same thing, So anyway, I will say that you absolutely have to make the best and wisest decision for your football career, or else you might not be happy and it may come back on you. So,
well, let's speak to this because this is something that I really think people need to hear is that you mentioned that loyalty. And one of the things that impressed me is I love the story I heard you tell in another show where you were talking about how your freshman year, I guess it was, when you get to practice, I don't even know if they threw a pass the entire time that y'all were in practice or whatever. And then you all go and do the 7-on-7s against Georgia State. And you're sharing the story about the receivers. Oh, wow. You're like, oh, I'm going to be throwing the ball. I came here to throw. Wow. And they're like, yeah, okay, good luck with that. Yeah. But the thing that really impressed me, Vad, about this is, and what I want the listeners to hear, especially as you said, those young players that are getting ready to be recruited or whatever, is you didn't pout. You didn't, like, when you got there to Georgia Tech and you realized, hey, this isn't the offense that I signed up for. I thought that I was going to be able to help evolve. You kept the nose down and were like, okay, let's go. I'm going to go and do the best I can with what this is. And I don't know if I think that's one of those things people need to understand is you're going to sometimes make decisions in your life that don't necessarily have the outcome you anticipated, but you can't then just pout about it. You've got to go and still have a job to do, and you need to go finish that job. Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because that's a huge point in all of this that could possibly get lost if you hear the other stuff. But we do need to highlight that nobody can say that I quit on my teammates, that I quit on the team. I quit in the middle of the season, or, I quit playing hard. I quit coming to practice. I quit going to school. I remember there was rumors. There were some crazy rumors about me when I transferred. I flunked out. I got kicked out, and all of these weird things that were said. And no one can ever say that, my teammates can never say that I didn't give my all. I absolutely gave my all. I just realized that my skill set wasn't fit for, more of a running quarterback. And what I had to realize is that there's a difference between a running quarterback and a scrambler, right? Russell Wilson, I would consider him a scrambler. He's not a running quarterback. So if you put him in, a system like that, I'm not sure how well he would do, quite frankly. He probably could do it, he probably could run it. And not to compare myself to Russell, that is my favorite quarterback, but I went hard and I gave everything that I had. I competed, and I fought to the very end, and I gave everything that I had. And when I made that decision that I was leaving, I was okay with that decision because I knew that I gave everything that I had. And what I had wasn't matching up to, that standard of offense. And I think that I had to do Georgia Tech I didn't want to do them a disservice, and I didn't want my career to be a disservice as well. But there's sometimes you're going to make decisions, and not every decision is going to be the right decision. But what about your character in that decision? How hard are you going in that, in that decision? And people will pull for you if they see that you tried to make it work.
Right. Yeah, and I'm glad that we unpacked that a little bit because I do agree. I think when people hear your story, if they don't know all of the details, and they are like, oh, okay, he was at Georgia Tech for, and doing very well. He's starting quarterback when you left. It wasn't like you were, some guy that's third string or fourth string and is entering the transfer portal because he's not getting an opportunity. You're getting an opportunity. It's just you had a vision for yourself even to the next level of professional athlete, being a professional athlete. And you knew, hey, I'm not going to be able to put any film together of me just rushing the ball 30 times a game, and that's not going to light up any general manager for a professional football team.
Absolutely. And I know we're getting ready to transition to JMU now.
Yeah.
but I want to stick with the recruiting and going to JMU. It's funny, when I got ready to transfer to James Madison, I had a few schools, Towson, JMU, and Northern Iowa. And one of the interesting things, again, I'm telling recruits, you have to make the best decision for you. I remember I was on my way to Iowa to visit Northern Iowa. And on the way, my mom was dropping me off at the airport, and I kind of looked at her. I was just thinking on the ride, and I said, "Ma, there is no way that I'm going to live in Iowa." I said, "There's just no way that I'm going to be in Iowa. It's just no way. I just can't even fathom. I don't even know where Iowa is on the map. Like, there is no way that I'm going to Iowa." And at this point, the coaches had already purchased my plane tickets, and I'm going for an official visit, and they're expecting me to be there, and so I had to call the coach, and I had to let him know, I am so sorry, and I'm sorry I wasted you guys' time, but I can't afford to waste you guys any more of your time, and I don't want to act. I don't want to, put on my acting career and act like everything is going to be fine. I tried to learn from my first recruiting experience. I only took one official visit, and that was to Georgia Tech. And, because of loyalty, I'm like, I can't go anywhere else. But this time around, you go through the recruiting process again, and I'm like, man, I want to take more visits this time. But I'm also not a guy that's just going to waste that's just wasting time at that point. And that's nothing against Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa has a great football program. Oh, yeah. Like, there's nothing against them. It was just, for me, I knew that wasn't for me. And I called the coach, and I let him know. And of course, he was disappointed, really disappointed in me. They paid for it and stuff like that. And but the interesting thing about it, I went to JMU. And my first week there, the coach that was recruiting me at Northern Iowa was on a visit at JMU because Coach Withers had offered him the job. Now, he didn't end up taking it. He didn't take it, but I was just like, "Oops! Oh, wow. What's up, Coach?" I said, so,
that's awesome.
That's when you tell the lineman, "Hey, listen, y'all just stay right there. We're gonna work on the pocket presence. Y'all stay here. Don't let him see me."
Absolutely. I was on the fence of like, should I let him see me, or should I let him see me, because you're here with me and you were telling me
true.
There. So the lesson here is that you have to make the best decision for you, not because, and it sounds bad, but, football has changed, and, it's a business. And, I'm very light when it comes to family. Family gets thrown around in football and stuff. I'm kind of light because I've been on the other side of it as a character coach, team chaplain. I've been in those meeting rooms. I've heard conversations, and I still think like a player, but I'll also have experience on the other side of things. And I'm kind of iffy when it comes to all of that, because at the end of the day, it's a business. And I tell young people that so that they can start thinking like that.
So what was it that attracted you to JMU from a standpoint of, that fit with who Vad Lee was at that time?
Yeah. Well, one of the schools I was being trained by George Whitfield, who's a big time trainer, and trained Cam Newton and Andrew Luck and all of these big time guys. And he was very connected with Ohio State. And, I was actually looking and potentially staying, big D1 and going somewhere like Ohio State. It was Baylor was the other option, and these coaches were interested. However, my credits, and I wasn't graduated yet, so I would have had 1 year to play instead of 2 years to play if I would have stayed on that level. So I made the decision hey, I need 2 years. I've been at Georgia Tech playing for 2 years. I need to get back into a system where, I can get going. Well, Coach Everett Withers recruited me at UNC coming out of high school. He at Tar Heels, right down the street from me in Durham, North Carolina. So I knew Coach Withers. Coach Withers knew my high school coach. Some of my Hillside big brothers went there and played at Carolina. So Coach Withers knew about me. He recruited me. I knew about him. And when he took the job, it was kind of just a mutual connection there. That was that kind of won it right there. And when I went to my visit to James Madison, I pulled up, and the road to turn on to campus is called Hillside Avenue or Hillside Drive. And I thought that was very unique, obviously, and I thought that was pretty cool. And I fell in love with the campus. I was in Georgia Tech is in the middle of the city, and JMU is in like the mountains. Mm-hmm. Well, you kind of got to think about that a little bit, because Atlanta, you're kind of living a grown man's lifestyle, because you don't go just to parties, you go to clubs and, things like that. Yeah. And I used to be very uncomfortable, kind of like, man, this is like, I don't know about this. And, versus JMU, it felt like I was a freshman all over again, because, it's only dorm parties and stuff like that. And not to talk about parties so much, but I will say there was a different dynamics that I had to adjust to and transition to when I got to JMU that I didn't previously experience before. And I was a junior at the time, but I felt like a freshman when I got to JMU. I had a really fun time. And I will say that I was really impressed by their stadium, going from a big, ACC program, Power 5 conference to FCS. You don't kind of have real expectations. It's kind of like, you're going down a level. So it's like, you get what you get. But when I went to JMU, it was like, man, this is not, some people think this is going down, but this is enough, it's an upgrade for me in terms of me personally. Right. And I really enjoyed their stadium, and really enjoyed the coaching staff that they put together and the type of offense that they were planning on running.
Well, it starts out great. I mean, you guys right away. I remember, when it was announced you were going to be coming to JMU, you talk about a buzz and excitement. And I got to be honest with you, Vad, I really believe this is that with Coach Withers, with yourself, with Gage Steele, some of those guys that were leaders on those teams early on. I think now what people know of JMU football that almost becomes a catalyst, not to take anything away from Mickey Matthews and some of the things they did in 2004 when they won the national championship, but where that has elevated, I think you came to JMU at a good time. And to your point, it's a great atmosphere. Some people consider it like almost a SEC type school at the FCS level, but with the excitement you bring to it, all of a sudden now there's other FBS transfers coming in, because I think that kind of like, they're like, wow, Vad Lee's going there. Let's go. And now all of a sudden, I think that starts a culture. I think that starts, in my opinion, what people know to be that championship culture that is year in, year out, everybody expecting it to be a top tier program. So did you all feel that? Could you tell that was something coming on?
Yeah, I agree. One thing I remember is the first week there was one of the hardest weeks of my football life because Coach Withers and his staff were extremely hard and difficult, and they made it difficult. I think about 30 plus guys ended up quitting the team because of it. And Coach Withers kind of pride himself like that's just how they do things. And man, it's like I'm kind of to the point now where if you don't ever think about possibly quitting football, it might mean that you're not working hard enough or you're not going hard enough. Because I know what hard works look. The guys at JMU, they know that the guys that survived, I would say, man, we went through it. And I remember having to earn everything. Coach Withers didn't give me anything. In fact, JMU had a record-setting quarterback already there. That was already there, and that was a huge battle in the spring. And this guy was really good. I respect his game, and he ended up playing and going elsewhere and playing and doing some really good stuff. But I would say he made me better as well, because I realized that just because you came down to a level, it doesn't guarantee anything. And in fact, we had a lot of transfer guys that didn't start. That we had a lot of D1 transfer
absolutely
played on that level that didn't play. In fact, I think I might have been one of like many that out of all of them, just a couple guys may have had, and it's a mindset. You're going down, but I never thought that I was going down. I thought that I was coming to have a better opportunity to showcase my talents, right?
Yeah.
That didn't mean that it was going to be given, but it was just an opportunity for me to showcase. So, I would like to think that, the success that JMU has had since we were on the roll those 2 years that I was there, and people don't even realize, and sometimes I don't even realize it. I only got to play like 15 games or so, 16 games maybe. I didn't play 2 seasons. I played a season and a half, and I just can only imagine what it would have been if possibly could have finished that second.
I think you and a lot of people do. I mean, not to rewrite history here, but I think there's a lot of people, JMU fans, that would easily speculate that with the numbers y'all were putting up early in that season, that prior to your injury, and I want to talk about that here in a second, that could have been a very special year, just like the following year was. One reason I want to bring this up, Vad, of course, you all had a big win against SMU. That was another, put JMU on the map kind of a thing, as far as that was the first FBS team that JMU had beaten since Virginia Tech, which of course we're going to bring that up. But here's something I want to, and doing some research, I want to really talk to you about, because this is something when we talk about leadership. So later that season, after the SMU game, College Game Day comes to town, and that's when they do a feature on you, big man on campus. And, it's one of those things that, having had a son on the team, as I mentioned earlier, he always talked about what a great teammate you were. And I want to read to you a quote that Dean Cheatham, who you know is your tight end that year, was quoted as saying, "I'd say there was an added amount of pressure with the spotlight on Vad, but Vad never made it about Vad. It was always about us, always about the team." So what do you think makes a good teammate?
Yeah, I think that what makes a good teammate is a guy who's not in his own head, a guy that is not centered around you. I will say I embrace the spotlight. I don't need the spotlight. I embrace everything that comes with the game and comes with the position. I just love the position. Now, that spotlight comes with it, but I embrace it because I know that everybody's looking. So what do? I try my best to be a positive leader. I try my best to lead others by example. And it's all about the other person. It's all about the next person, because I am only as good as if my receiver catch the ball, if my offensive line block, if my running back pick up the blitz and linebacker, that's what makes me good. So if I care about you, then ultimately it comes back, and it's kind of like a marriage, right? We have to, maybe some things that we do for our spouse that we might not necessarily like, but you will end up getting blessed because, that person, whatever. So, it's a healthy balance between when you are sacrificing for the next person. And I will say that one of the best compliments that I received was when I first got to JMU. One of my guys told me that they thought that, they didn't know that getting this big time quarterback coming in from, that played in the ACC, starting quarterback. Again, I wasn't like a guy who was trying to get some playing time somewhere else. I was starting quarterback in the ACC, and, they thought they was getting this big shot, guy, rah-rah guy is what I call him. And I was just one of the guys, and that's what was told to me. Like, you just came and you were just one of the guys. And that was one of the best compliments I could have received, because honestly, I don't know how to be anything else. I was nervous as crap too, going into a new environment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anybody. And, so we all were nervous and trying to figure it out together. And with this new coaching staff, they made everybody uncomfortable. So, we were all, wide-eyed and trying to figure it out together. So I would have to credit Coach Withers and his staff and them making it about the team. We had leadership councils. We established a big brother program where when a freshman came in, an older guy was responsible for that freshman. Like, we established some of those things that made it easy to be a leader.
Yeah. So I mentioned College Game Day, Vad. Of course, that's the Richmond game, and you remember that day for a lot of other reasons, right? Talk to us a little bit about what happened in that game and how that kind of changed maybe the rest of the story?
Yeah, one of the best days of my life. It was one of the most energetic environments that I've ever played in my entire life. We got surprised with new helmets, new uniforms, and it was just a fantastic moment that I will never forget. First of all, let's acknowledge that College Game Day is coming to James Madison, out of all places, right? And second of all, let's acknowledge JMU College Game Day quoting, I think, Desmond Howard, saying that this is the best environment that they have ever seen. They've never seen anything like this, and so it just shows what JMU is about, right? And of course, we had a game, and the year before against Richmond, I ended up setting a record of passing yards. I threw for like 433 yards at their place. So of course, we were confident. I'm confident that things were going to go well, and it's a rivalry. But I was new to the rivalry, so after throwing for 433 yards and, kind of blowing them out, it was like, what rivalry, and, but they had a really tough team, and I'm not going to say they surprised us, but they played extremely well. Now, I do believe I ran into a Richmond guy. I was working out with him last summer, and we were arguing back and forth on, if I would have stayed healthy, if he thought we would have pulled it out. And honestly, I think in terms of stat line, that might have been my best game ever, even over SMU. If I would have been able to finish the game. I think at that time I ended the game, I was at 320 passing, and I had like 120 rushing already. And it was in 4 touchdowns. It was like a fun game to play in. And, but, obviously when that play came, it was just it was one of those things where a guy yanked your foot back while you're going forward. And I don't know if it was intentional, or I don't think it was intentional. It was just one of those, one of those fluke plays that just happens. I didn't think anything of it. In fact, I ended up playing 5 more plays, I believe, off one foot, and I could only put pressure on my right foot. And it came down to that 4th and 1, and our bread and butter play was quarterback power up the middle, because, I was going to follow the running back and I was going to get it. There was no stopping me on that. But we had to call a timeout. And I remember the whole time thinking, like, I can't go to the sideline because if I go to the sideline, that means I have to face reality, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what this thing is, but I know I can't put pressure on my left foot. So I tried to get taped up. I got taped up right then and there, and they taped me up. I got off the training table, and I'm like, all right, I'm good. So I decided to walk. Man, as soon as I put pressure on that left foot, I fell to the ground, and I realized, it couldn't happen. And the play call came in. I'm still thinking that I'm going out in the game. The play call came in, and it was indeed, the quarterback power. So. My coach didn't even have to say anything. I kind of knew what that meant. I knew I couldn't get it, and so that's when Brian Shore went into the game.
Yep.
And, when I'm speaking about this, when I have public speaking, I'm I go into a little bit more detail about how I felt and things of that nature. But, to wrap it up in one sentence, it's one of those moments and lifetime moments that you realize that life goes on with or without you. And that, you can be great 1 minute and, not be in that position again. And, that's where purpose over position comes from. You kind of look out there and you see, man, that's not your position anymore. That's somebody else's position. And, but what are you doing still on purpose? And one of the things that I pride myself on is leadership and character development and the things that goes beyond the game of football. And that's purposeful to me. Because positions are very temporary.
So let's talk a little bit about this for the sake of time, because, and man, we could have you on and we'll have you on another time, because there's so many things I know we can unpack here. But, and I know that, after that injury, just for the listeners' sake, to fast forward a little bit, after the injury, you tried to come back, I think, for pro day and some other things. And it just wasn't, as you've said before, you could tell weren't the same player from the physical attributes and the things that made you Vad Lee. It was tough to kind of ever regroup. You tried some in the Canadian Football League and some different things, but I think Vad, and we talk about this all the time, is I had one of my own spiritual leaders said to me one time, and I'll never forget this. He said, "What could have happened did happen." And a lot of times we have a tendency in our lives to think about things of, well, if I had just done this, or if maybe I hadn't got hurt, then this would have happened, or if this would have happened. He said, if you truly believe God has a plan and that's who's in control of all these things in your life, then you have to believe that what could have happened did happen. And so that's one of those things that I think a lot about when I read your story and I read, purpose over position. And I want people to hear is that, and Brandon and I talk about this on the show a lot, and our guests have talked about this, is, one of the challenges with college athletes is that becomes their identity. That is everything they are. It's Vad Lee, the football player, becomes bigger than anything else. But the reality, and I know what you try to get across in your speaking and also with your book, is it's just a small piece of it. Like, that's just a page in the big journal, right? Or the big book. So talk to us a little bit about this book, because we talked about it in the introduction about you being an author in this book. And I want to also talk to you here in a second about your other one, because I love that whole journey. Yes. But about purpose over position, how it came to be, and just a little bit about what they can expect from it.
Yeah, purpose over position. I'll share this unique story to kind of, put purpose over position in a story mode. I get hurt and life goes on, right? I graduate from JMU, move back home in Durham, North Carolina. I started coaching my high school. After, I went to the Giants first and went to their rookie mini camp. I was limping all over the field, but trying to fake it till I make it, right? That's the dream, to be on that level, right? And it's funny because, the general manager said, "Hey man, you were slinging the ball out there, but I could still tell you're favoring that foot." And, it was encouraging, but it's also the reality. Then I went to the CFL, and I ended up leaving myself just because I couldn't take seeing myself at 70%. I only know how to go 100. I only train for 100%. So if I'm at 70%, I feel like I'm doing you a disservice. So anyway, I decided to leave. I necessarily wasn't done with the game. I just felt like I was not the same caliber. And anyway, JMU goes on, and led by the great Brian Shore, they go on and they beat North Dakota State, the semifinal game, to go to the championship. Well, I remember that it was that game where my wife and I went to a watch party. I've never been to like a watch party. I'm the guy that's usually playing and stuff. And so that was very unique for me because I got to see that perspective, but I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to that. I was used to being the guy, right? And so we went to the watch party. It was a fun time. But when we went back home, something unique happened. When we went back home, and as soon as the door closed, I cried my eyes out, and I could not stop crying. It was the hardest I probably cried. I didn't even cry over I cried over the injury, but, I was hopeful that everything was going to work itself out, that I was still going to go to the NFL, still get drafted, right, like play an all-star game or do something. I was just very hopeful. However, when a whole year goes by and you really see that life goes on, and it's not that you want anybody to do bad. It's not that at all. But right, you see that, like, man, you're not necessarily needed as much as you think you are. You're not as good as you think you are. You haven't made it to this level as much as you think you've made it to this level. And that was a great lesson for me to learn, because I was so happy for JMU. But at the same time, I was so heartbroken because I realized that, I wasn't where I thought I would be. I thought that the year before we were going to be in that position to play Carson Wentz in North Dakota State and in the championship game, and Vad Lee versus Carson Wentz. I dreamed about that, because he had a lot of hype about NFL and stuff, and I was like, man, this is
here we go
opportunity. And when that happened, man, I just remember I broke down for probably the first time, and it was needed. It was a lesson that was needed. It was a lesson of humility. It was a lesson of pressing on and moving forward and all of those things. And And what happened the next week, or when the championship was coming around, I got a call from my coach, Jamal Powell, who has passed on, has passed away. Great mentor of mine, great man of, just friend. He's more a friend than a coach, to be honest. And he called me. He said, "Vad, are you coming to the game?" And I felt like I wasn't ready to come to the game. I just wasn't mentally, emotionally. I felt insecure because I wasn't where I always thought I would be. And I'm living at home in Durham, North Carolina. I definitely didn't think I was going back home, right? And he called me, and I told him no. I told him, Coach, I'm broke. I didn't have a job or anything. I'm trying to, college student, recent college grad, trying to figure it out. But for me, I felt like that was unacceptable because I didn't give myself enough grace because I was used to being in the spotlight. And now I'm not. It's like, man, people are going to think I'm a bum or something. And I told him no, I don't have any money, which was true. I didn't. I'd rather watch it on TV. And he cursed me out, and he said, "BS." He said, "You're coming to this game," and he encouraged me like, "You're the reason why we're here, and you need to be here. You're coming to this game." And about 15 minutes later, he wouldn't even want me sharing this story, but I just love this story so much because it captures purpose over position. And about 15 minutes later, I get a email alert that says plane ticket RDU to Dallas, Texas. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to the game because I can't use the excuse I don't have any money because he just purchased my ticket. And then somehow I ended up the FCA guy, our character coach, who was like a mentor to me. He had a hotel room, and he had an extra ticket to the game because I called him and he said, "Man, you can stay with me, hang out with me. I got a ticket to the game." And I'm like, "Okay, great. All right." So now I got a plane ticket. I got a ticket to the game. I got somewhere to stay. And he had a car. He rented a car. So I got transportation. And when I got to that game that morning, that was my first time being in a tailgating scene at JMU.
Yeah.
So many
crazy,
so much purple all over the place. And that was my first engagement with fans since I, was playing. And I just remember being pulled in all different directions, taking pictures, people offering me food. And it was just like walking through a parade. And I had no idea that I'd be embraced like that, especially, once people move on and we're in a championship game, like you're old news now. Like I wasn't expecting any of that. However, it kind of made me feel good about myself. Like at least I know that, I was appreciated and what I've done, may have helped just a little bit for these guys to, continue to advance. So another thing is Jordan Brown. He was on the national championship team. He kept calling me and saying, "Man, you got to come speak to us. You got to come speak to us." That didn't happen, but just the fact that one of my teammates would say before their biggest game, say, "You got to come speak to our team." That meant so much to me. And I tried to stay out of the way too, because I had my time in the spotlight. I didn't want, any of that attention. And so as the story keeps going though, sorry, I missed the detail. Before getting to the game on the plane ride there, I fell asleep, and I fell asleep kind of next to this lady, and I was kind of my head, like I was knocked out to the point where I was laying on her. Like I was
y'all got real comfortable.
Yeah, I was kind of on her shoulder, and this kind of gets a little spiritual, but I woke up. And she was smiling at me, and I apologized, like, "I'm sorry, And she said, "No, it's okay." She said, "While you were sleeping, I was praying for you." And she said, "God told me to tell you, just write the book." And
no way.
What?
I was like, whoa. And that's significant because just 2 weeks before that, might have been maybe the second or third week in January, maybe a couple of days before that, I had a vision board for that year. And that was my first time writing a vision board. And on the vision board, I wrote, start writing purpose over position book. And that was a vision that I had to I didn't dream of becoming an author. I don't even know how to write for real.
Wow.
I don't know.
You wrote those poems.
Like some poetry.
Yeah.
I guess. But yeah, I wrote that in my vision board. My wife and I, we had a picture of it. I'm gonna have to find it, but we had it on our wall. And this was our first year in marriage too. So like we were trying to figure things. Well, this was like our first month in marriage. We were about to get married like 10 days from that point. And anyway, we had a vision board, and yeah, she said, God told me to tell you to write the book. And I was like, whoa, like that is interesting because I just wrote that down. And so I didn't want to miss that detail. That was a huge detail.
No question.
Yeah. Going and I'm about to wrap it up, but it gets better. So that happened. Then so I got the call from my coach Powell, and then get on a plane, and this lady said, God told me to tell you to write the book. Okay, boom. I go to tailgating. Well, then they had a pep rally before the game. So I'm just in the crowd with everybody, just a regular guy and a fan or whatever, in the pep rally. Well, I'm standing there, and somebody on stage starts pointing down at me and saying, there goes Vad. And I'm kind of like, what is going on? And I see him walk off stage, come to me. They whisper in my ear and say, hey, Vad, we can't find Jeff Bourne. It's his turn to go on stage. Jeff Bourne is the athletic director, for those that don't know. He said, this is his turn to go on stage. We don't know where he is. Would you mind filling in for him? I said, what am I supposed to say? I didn't practice this,
Right.
So anyway, they convinced me enough. And I went up there, and I was only on there for about 2 minutes. And I went on there to pump up the crowd and, say, hey, GMU. And there's a video that I ended up posting on my Instagram about it. But I ended up being a part of this thing now, right? And I know it was only God, but now I'm a part of this thing. So then I get to my seats. The game has started. We get to our seats, and I just, again, have regular seats. Nothing fancy about me being there. I'm just there to support my guys. I didn't want to be in the spotlight or anything like that. And I go to the concession stand probably about in the second quarter, and I get a call on my phone, and it's like, Vad, is that you down there? I'm like, yeah, where you at? And he's like, oh, I'm up here in this press box. We got room for you. Come on up. I'm like, I've never been in the press box before. I'm like, all right, cool. And I said, but I'm with somebody, and so I'm like, yeah, come on, whatever. And man, they had cookies and chicken and all types of sweet tea and all types of stuff up there. And I'm like, man, this is the life. I need to be in the press box more, And, so I was just living the life up there, watching the game. I might even forgot about the game a little bit because it was just so great being up there. And we were still doing good. We were taking care of everything on the field. Well, that happened. Well, it gets better. And the fourth quarter comes rolling around, and about 2 minutes left in the game. We kind of know we're about to win, right? I get another call on my phone, and this time is one of the guys in the Dupes Club, Dupes League, and he's on the field. And he said, hey, Vad, look down at is that you up there at the press box? I said, yeah. He said, look down about the 30-yard line, and he was waving, and he said, hey, man, I got an extra pass for you to come down here and celebrate with your guys when the clock
so cool.
0. And I didn't plan this at all. This was not like, I can't take any credit for any of this. But I go down there on the field, and the clock hits 0. I get to hug Brian Shore. I get to hug Brandon Ravenel, Rashard Davis. I get to just have a moment with these guys, of excitement and joy. And I felt like I was going to lead my team to the national championship my senior year. I had that same feeling that I had in high school that we were going to go undefeated 16-0. I had that same feeling at JMU. It did not happen, but God still allowed for me to be in that moment and be a part of that national championship story when I didn't even supposed to be. So when I talk about purpose over position, I'm talking about you can be in a position that's not that great, or you can be out of position. But when you do things on purpose, God will always align it for purpose over position. He's always looking out for your purpose over your position. It doesn't mean that your position doesn't matter. Your position absolutely matters, right? But understand it's like an umbrella. If I move to the, if I move to the right or move to the left, if I carry that umbrella of purpose with me, no matter what position I'm in, it's still going to cover me. So purpose over position is more of a covering. Purpose is more of the covering over your position. Mm-hmm. So, I enjoyed writing that book. It has relieved me from a lot of thoughts and feelings and emotions that I've had, and it has allowed me to express those things in writing form. So I hope that wasn't a long
No, that's amazing.
Absolutely amazing. And what I love about all of that is you talk about purpose and somebody who lived their life with such great purpose as Coach Powell. And all of that entire story starts with him stepping outside of himself and thinking, as he did so often with so many players, about how can I lift Vad up? How can I do something that's going to be selfless and lift Vad up in this moment? And so it all starts with a plane ticket purchase, because you're not there to experience it. And I love the fact that, you talk about your thoughts going into it, and then you get there and you realize people are pointing aside, and they're like, you start to see the impact that you had on so many people, that when you're under the helmet and you're on the field, you don't always, other than applause, you don't always get a chance to see that. And it reminds me of and Brandon probably knows where I'm going with this, because it's one of my favorite quotes is, if your presence doesn't have an impact, your absence won't make a difference. And it's so true that you're in your presence, man. Let me tell you, it had a huge impact on a lot of people in the Shenandoah Valley and the whole area. So guys, listeners, get on. You can go on. I saw it on Target. I got it off of Amazon. You can buy the book. You got to go get this book. It's Purpose Over Position, Discerning God's Plan to Live a Life Full of Purpose. And Vad, we're going to have you back at some point to dig a little bit further into that. But before we let you go, and I would be crazy to not talk about this, especially in today's climate, I think that's my friend. What a great book, and just the story behind that book. Could you share with the listeners a little bit about how that project came up?
Yeah, my wife and I collaborated on writing that book, and just a mini story. We were at a park, and this little girl, she was white, about we're guessing her age, but she's probably like 7 years old. She came up to me particularly, and she was so innocent and so cute. But she asked a question, and she said, "I just don't understand how your whole family is Black." And it was like the cutest, but also I was kind of thrown off by that. And I was like shocked by that. And this is 2018 at the time. And Nuts. I'm just like, what do you watch on TV? Like, what school do you go to? Like, are you just, and this is my adult mind thinking. Right. But I was stuck, and I didn't answer her because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to answer that. And then the other thing that kind of went behind when we wrote it, the George Floyd deal that just happened. And I didn't want to go on Facebook and do a bunch of, what everybody was doing. So my wife and I, we challenged each other, what can we do to be a part of the solution and be a part of change? And we thought, man, how about we write a book? And it was really easy to write the book because our oldest daughter, there's an anointing on her ever since she was born, where people would stop us in the grocery store. They would stop us in a mall and say, like, wow, she needs to, she like her skin, and just everybody used to talk about her skin. It was something about her skin that made people stop and say, there's something different about your child. And we're like, I don't know, so many people were saying, you need to put her in modeling. And I'm talking about, she was 2 months, 6 months old. And they're saying, we don't even know what they're talking about and how to even start that process. But one of the things about her is she says this line every time that we go somewhere. When she started talking, if she see another young person, no matter what color, no matter what age, if she see another little person, she immediately says, can I go play with my friend? That's my friend, and it's interesting because we live in such a cruel world where my wife and I have found ourselves trying to protect her a little bit now because people don't give her the same response, and it hurts for us to have to like take away her personality, her uniqueness. And we try not to, but we also have been hurt, and, we've seen things and, of that nature too. But one of the reasons why we wanted to write that book is to answer that little girl's question at the park, and to expose her to, different cultures and race and cultural differences, but also a message that will encourage our young people that we all have a seat at the swing. We all have a seat at the table, but for, young people, let's all come to the swing and have a good time together. So in the book, we have some things that goes deeper than just the word. We were all flowing together in unity. We were, hey friend, even before you know their name, you consider them a friend first, because, we're going to just, we want to be inviting, we want to be accepting, we want to get to know your story. So that book was really, really fun to learn, because my wife and I, it's not like we're culture experts. We had to go out and learn what was unique to this culture, what was unique to this culture, and try to include it in that book. And that book has done really well. It has opened so many doors for us to go and speak. And we just did a book drive with the University of Maryland for Black History Month. And that was really cool. So it has challenged me to learn more, to listen more, to understand more, and to also have grace more as well.
I love that story. Yeah. I'm telling you, it just gave me chills, because she does have something about her, and it's that she's sent a message. And Lord knows it's a message we all need to hear right now for sure. So, guys, I didn't lie to you. I said this was going to be a fantastic show. So vadlee.org, talk to us. How do people get in touch with you? They want you to come speak, all that stuff.
Yeah, you definitely can. You can go to vadlee.org. That just gives a little bit about myself. I got to do a better job of updating it to more modern, more of what I'm doing now. I created it about 2 years ago, but it's still linked to everything that I do. So you can contact me on there, write a message. You can also buy the books on there. I can sign it for you. You can learn more about my family and I on there as well. And if you want to know more about the nonprofit organization, you can put in mypurposeoverposition.com. Kind of long, but you put mypurposeoverposition.com, MY, and then purposeoverposition.com. And you will learn about what we're doing. And what we do is we care for athletes who experience traumatic events. And when I say traumatic, I'm talking about injuries. I'm talking about life, mental health. I'm talking about all of these different things that goes on in the athlete's mind that could hinder their performance on the field. We want to help them grow and help them overcome that. And where do I get that from? I'm sensitive to it because that was my story, right? And that is my story. I used the word was, but it is my story. And I'm still overcoming it even to this day. I just right before we got on this podcast, I just got a football call about potentially playing, somewhere. And, I'm back and forth in that. And that's a huge mental block because I have a family, and football is not guaranteed. Do I decide to hang it up? Do I keep it going? I still train because in my mind, I want to still play, but now I'm in a position now where I have to figure out what's most important. It might not be playing. And so anyway, life is something that always throws things at you, but I'm writing more books now. My next book be tailored to more of transitions and helping athletes overcome the transition of not playing anymore. So,
well, God bless you, man. We're so Absolutely. Pulling for you, proud of you. We'll be praying for you. Brandon, pretty impressive, huh? This is incredible stuff, and hopefully all the listeners were taking notes.
Well, after an hour, it's good to say that's my friend.
You got that right. You got that right.
Yes,
yep.
sir.
Well, that's a great last word. Well, Vad, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. And we're definitely going to have you back on the show sometime to get a little bit further into purpose over position and all the great stuff you're doing out there. Keep doing what you're doing.
I'm going to hold it to you guys. I'm going to hold you to it. So I look forward to being back on, and thank you guys so much for having me. And thank you all. Thanks to all the listeners for supporting. And I know some people are going to probably come and buy the book and stuff. We appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thanks, Vad.
Thanks, Vad.
Want to provide feedback or stay up to date with the show? Visit our Instagram page at Mental Advantage Podcast, or you can send us an email at podcast@mentaladvantage.net. To have John Cullen work with you or your team, please write to him at john.cullen@mentaladvantage.net. Thanks for listening to today's episode.